Welcome to the 10-Minute Treasurer. My name is Jeff Pospisil. In this video, we're going to talk about what is the most important number on your financial statement. And the reason why this came up is I was visiting with a friend of mine. We serve on the same board, and we were just talking about in generalities, how it's so important to know which numbers to look at. And he asked me, so which numbers are the most important? And I started, again, kind of continuing on generalities. And then he asked me, no, which numbers are the most important? And that got me to think, is that, am I doing a poor job on highlighting those very, very important numbers? And so that's what we're going to dive in today. And hopefully this will be a help for you. I'm also going to share with you an idea about an executive summary, which will help focus people on those very most important numbers. So here is an example of some financial statements that I used to give to my whole board. So not just the finance committee, but to the whole board. The finance committee, most of them should be able to digest a large set of numbers, know which ones to pick out that are the most important, especially after time. But your whole board, should they really be expected to look at this? I mean, page after page after page of financial numbers. And again, most of them are not financially minded people. And so after, in this case, 17 pages, I could see why they really didn't see the most important numbers. And I should have realized this a lot earlier, but for whatever reason, I didn't. So what I ended up developing is this. It's a really one-page summary, financial, I call it an executive summary. I don't know if that's the right thing, but it's just a one-page, this is what you really need to know as a board. And so the first thing I want people to know, and this is what our finance committee looked at all the time, was what was our balance in checking and savings. And you can see, and again, I don't know if this is the perfect format for it, but I like a graph. And you could see that the blue number there, the blue column, that is the one for the current year, and the rest of them are prior years. And so you could see the change in cash and how it compares to prior years. So I thought that was an important number that they could be watching, and they should be watching, is how well are we doing for cash? And then when you go down, the next numbers that were more important was our net income versus loss. So net income and loss. So how are we doing? What's the bottom line for how we're doing for operations? And then on the other side there, we have how are we doing towards our budget? So how are we doing versus our plan? And so those are the three numbers that I thought were the most important. And as a finance committee, we agreed those are the most important for them to look at. Well, then the other thing I ended up doing as well is not just those numbers. I also included, and I'm going to kind of blur this out because I don't think anything's confidential, but I still don't want to show everything just in case. I had any actions that I wanted them to vote on, so that the finance committee made some recommendations for them to vote on. And in this case, it was just improving the financial reports. But then also, are there any other highlights that they should be aware of? And this might be unusual expenses or unusual revenue, or maybe there's just something else that's normally not an important number that we want to draw their attention to this time. By the way, I would also make available all the detailed financial statements, because there will be a handful of people that will want to be able to see that. But I'm going to focus my report on just this one-page document. All right, so here is my template for this executive summary, and I made it in Excel. I like Excel and I like templates because then you can report very efficiently and very consistently. And let me just give you the quick tour, and I'm going to make this available in the description. So first of all, I'm going to show you the header is where you would change the date for this. So that shows up. You can put your ministry name there. And then in the footer is where I put the people in attendance at the finance committee meeting. So if I'm reporting as of the finance committee. So let's go back, and now you can see the different graphs, and I'm going to show you how to update those. There's data behind this. But before we do that, let me finish the tour. These bolded items, those are the action items that the finance committee needs the board to vote on. And then below that, these are the highlights. And one thing too is, if your highlights are a little longer, if you're a little bit, you could just make the row wider. It'll wrap the text and it'll look nice. But let's go to the data section first. So every month I would take the important numbers and I would add them to this spreadsheet. So here's my checking and cash, and I'm just going to plug a fake number in here. And then also there would be one for your net income and loss, and I'm going to plug in another fake number. And below this, it's my budget numbers. And I guess I'm not going to do that right now. But anyway, that you would also update that at the same time. So let's go back to the executive summary. And if I click on this graph, you don't have to right click, but if you just click on it and then go over to your chart design menu and choose chart data or select data. And that opened a little bit off to the side, so I'm going to drag that on. But you can see right here that I have 2 months selected, and we just added September, so I'm going to click on September, and I'm going to go ahead and click OK, and now you can see a third month. So again, what you have to do is click on your chart, go to select our chart design, select data, and choose the next month. One thing I wish I would have done is now is add some data for the budget one, because that one is a little different. It's reporting just as of one row of data, so you just have to move that row down. So check, instead of it being row whatever it is, 30 or something like that, go ahead and choose the one after that. So what are the most important numbers? And this is a discussion I would have with your finance committee as well as your board, is what are the most important numbers for you? A lot of times when I talk with executive leaders, and normally it's like pastors, they want to know, how are we doing? How are we doing? And that usually means, how are we doing overall versus the budget? And how are we doing as income versus expense? So the net income, net loss. That is, how are we doing? The other thing they want to know is, how much can I spend? Sometimes that is the cash position. It might be, that's not a bad one to do. Or if there's designated funds, reporting on the designated funds. And this might change over time. The most important number does not always stay constant. I mean, imagine you're doing a building campaign. All of a sudden, the most important number might be pledges, or it might be payments on pledges. So that could change over time, but what is the most important number? That's a very good conversation to have. And what that does is, after you tell them what they need to know, that might open them up more, because you have some requests of them. You want them to do something or make a decision on something. And so you give them the information they need, then hopefully they're able to better make their own decisions. And then also, they might be more open to hearing what you have to say. So you solve their need of knowing, how much money can I spend? How are we doing? And then, oh, by the way, here's some other important things that you should also be aware of. And keep it very short. Why I keep it at one page is really to force me to focus in. As somebody that likes finances, I could probably pick 20 most important things every time, but it forces me to pick 5 or 6 important things. So to put in my highlights. All right, hopefully that has given you some thoughts, because that is one of your most important duties as an accountant or a bookkeeper or a treasurer, is communicating the most important financial information to those people that are receiving your reports. And an executive summary is probably a good idea for most people to be able to put together. And it doesn't have to be as flashy as mine. It could be, I've seen some churches just have, 5 numbers on a sheet of paper, and those are the most important numbers. And then they talk about that every meeting. And that's fine too, but make it as short and simple as possible for those people making the decisions, just knowing that they're probably not going to be able to read 17 pages of financial reports. All right, this is a ministry of JCT Accounting Company, and I also want to lift up Dakota Wesleyan University, who is producing great faith-filled leaders and also very skilled accountants and finance people. All right, God bless you till next time.